And now it is time to get to the keynote presentation this month, which is Jamf Compliance Editor Q&A with Matt Woodruff. Matt is a three-time LaunchPad presenter, which I think ties him with Kevin White, putting them as the top presenters here at LaunchPad. It's always good company to be in. Matt is the lead solutions architect at Jamf, and you just recently celebrated your 10-year Jamf anniversary, which is crazy. So
Thank you.
congratulations there. With that, Matt, the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Hey, everyone. I'm back. Hopefully you're not getting too tired of me yet, as we have recently completed Jamf Nation Live, and I've had the privilege of flying all over the country for a month and presenting. As Adam mentioned earlier, I was in San Francisco, New York, and Boston events. I was unable to make it to Austin or Chicago, but I was able to present specifically on the Jamf Pro compliance benchmarks. And for those of you that were unable to attend and get a download of that particular feature set, that is obviously something that both Rocket Man can assist you with, but we can also dive into that maybe on another subject or a topic day. But yeah, Jamf Pro compliance benchmark came out. So a ton of questions started appearing. What about Jamf Compliance Editor? What's going to happen to it? What's the state, future? And so that's the one thing I want to kick off right now, is that we do have a proper product development plan for the next quite a few months as we wait on the feature parity to happen in the Jamf Pro compliance benchmarks feature to come up to speed. And the three areas that we will be waiting on is Jamf Pro compliance benchmark currently today only supports the CIS security benchmarks. Therefore, Jamf Compliance Editor supports all the rest of them, from CNNSSI to the DISASTIG to NIST 853, 800-171, CMMC, even the Germany-based BSI Indigo. They are all supported in there. The second thing that we're waiting on with Jamf Pro Compliance Benchmarks is supporting multiple operating systems, as Jamf Compliance Editor fully supports macOS, iOS, iPadOS, and visionOS as per the MSCP. And then last of all, the next major thing that actually is coming out in Jamf Pro Compliance Benchmark here shortly is reporting, and getting reporting done and completed, so that all of you have proper audit documentation about what are you implementing. Our hope and goal in Jamf Pro is to actually have a full compliance status report so that you can hand that over to auditors as well. But as of right now, there's a few things we're waiting on feature parity. So Jamf Compliance Editor has a pretty long life ahead of it. And so we will continue building that. Once again, please give us grace, as there's only 4 of us within Jamf that are actually building that tool. But we've heard, I think we're exceeding, I don't know, 40,000 downloads of that particular tool. I can't call it an application, but it's a tool. And so I appreciate everyone that's been using Jamf Compliance Editor. And now I would love to head over to Q&A and see what we've got here.
Matt, are you able to see the Q&A?
I am.
Perfect.
We're implementing Jamf Protect soon. Is there a better route of either using Jamf Compliance Editor or Jamf Protect for CIS level 1? Okay, so a lot to unpack there. Jamf Protect and its current capabilities of auditing for compliance, it currently attempts to use CIS level 1 and level 2. There are very key words that I drew out there. One, attempts. It is Jamf Protect's development team has done a really good job in trying to keep up with how you audit endpoints that try to meet CIS security benchmarks. But understanding this, they do not use MSCP on the back end for auditing purposes. So therefore, when trying to implement CIS level 1 or level 2, and you're wanting to audit as well, it is my recommendation that you at least first attempt to do it with Jamf Pro and not Jamf Protect. Second is that if you're finding that certain manipulations of both the like ODV values or then exceptions type of level reporting as well as audit reporting, and any of that is needed in your environment for CIS, definitely going to suggest Jamf Compliance Editor and utilizing that tool for building the benchmark, setting up auditing, but also getting your documentation. All of that is very good if you know you will be receiving an auditor that needs to thoroughly review all of that. Cool. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, please go and submit the question again or a clarifying question inside of the Q&A window. Any plans for JCE to support manually customized baselines when starting anew, opposed to picking something like CIS and then unchecking the rule you don't need and having to save as a JCE file? At this time, no. You can import a specific rule into JCE that is an additive to a certain baseline or benchmark. But at this time, we do not plan on offering the importation of any externally built baselines or benchmarks. To help understand the why, JCE or Jamf Compliance Editor is specifically built as a MSCP tool front end or a GUI front end. Therefore, if it's in MSCP, you should be able to do it in Jamf Compliance Editor. Add to it a certain rule, add to it an exception, change the value of certain rules, deselect the rules. That's the goal of Jamf Compliance Editor. Hopefully that helps. Thank you, Scott. Scott put a comment previously on, hopefully all of you can see the Q&A section, but Scott was mentioning it does a very poor job. So definitely get the feedback in if you're finding that Jamf Protect is unable to execute a proper audit of CIS. I will tell you that we are looking into the future of that particular feature in Jamf Protect and how we can implement it better or better across our platform. So get that feedback in if you have feedback. If you're unaware, you can always head to ideas.jamf.com. I know a few of them were posted earlier that Eric was asking for all of you to post. If not, I wanted to get that URL out there. Are you able to, third question, are you able to speak to whether Jamf has an intention to eventually sunset Jamf Compliance Editor when Jamf supports all of the baselines? It's actually not just the question. The full question was sunset Jamf Compliance Editor as soon as the Jamf Pro compliance benchmark feature supports all the baselines. At this time, not just supporting the baselines will be sufficient enough for us to sunset Jamf Compliance Editor. It needs to have full feature parity. It needs to be able to provide documentation. It needs to support all the operating systems. It needs to support all of the baselines. It needs to support exceptions to it. It needs to be able to add additional rules. When it gets to full feature parity is when we do plan on sunsetting the tool, as you don't need a whole separate tool to complete it when in fact the Jamf Pro application can complete the same. Great question though. Matt, will exceptions be possible with Jamf Pro compliance benchmarks or Jamf Protect? Exceptions are on the roadmap to be completed. In fact, I was just talking to the product owner yesterday morning about adding exceptions. What is it like to add it? How do you complete the addition of an exception to a rule? Why do organizations even need this type of format to apply an exception. So I was able to get through a lot of that with our product team and being able to describe the why. And now they're going to go through the process of understanding how can we do it, and more importantly, how can we do it in a very simplified manner for the organizations and customers of Jamf. That is our goal. Next is find a correct method of implementing exceptions. To continue in the finalizing of your question, will it be possible with Jamf Protect? No, the future of compliance benchmarks will solely sit within Jamf Pro. Next up, Matt, you keep hitting him. I like him. Matt also has another question. If we have OIDC enabled, would you recommend compliance benchmark or JCE focused on macOS? I think a few more clarifying questions I would ask is, are you wanting to implement CIS level 1 or level 2 only on macOS 13, 14, or 15? And you don't have any exceptions to your rules, and you don't need documentation. Those would mean that you absolutely should use Jamf Pro compliance benchmarks. If not, I would suggest you go use Jamf Compliance Editor for now. Eric was really worried that you all would not be submitting questions. So I'm very proud of all of you for submitting all of these questions. You're killing it. Just keep them coming. Next up is Steve. I know Tony also had a response to this. With WWDC coming up, how fast do CIS typically come out after an OS is released? Tony mentioned they will try to get them out with a month of release. CIS hosts weekly meetings on Fridays for the macOS benchmark. He is correct. Hosted by, in fact, I think Eric is still there at CIS. Few things that I would talk about with that. One, the intentionality of the macOS Security Compliance Project, MSCP, is to make sure and offer a very sound platform that is in an open source community, allowing for security benchmarks around the world to get a very fast follow after Apple finally releases the operating system. Meaning, yes, WWDC starts the clock, but that is all. We will then receive betas. You'll receive public betas. Then you will identify as the betas progress, as with Sequoia getting to beta 5, there were still getting introduced new management settings that CIS was not ready for, NIST was not ready for, and therefore they still got to implement a full update to the MSCP with guidance for most security benchmarks, the NIST 853, the 800-171, CMMC. I don't believe DISASTIG was ready the day of, but most of them are ready the day of because they're using MSCP. That's how critical MSCP is to this whole thing. Next is CIS and the DISASTIG. They take just a little bit more time for validation that the controls measured do in fact work on GA. And once that's been confirmed, they then GA their release of their benchmark in MSCP. Once again, it is a huge step for any of you as Mac admins or Apple admins to go in and follow MSCP, watch the progress that happens within MSCP. And if you are not a participant of CIS and be part of their community, you can get access to what's called the CIS Workbench, where you can monitor their progress and be able to see what's happening with CIS. So all of that, Steve, helps you understand what exactly is happening in the compliance world to support Apple's latest operating systems, specifically once they're finally GA. So thank you, Tony. You are correct. I just expanded upon it. Tony, good to see you. I think you even came to Jamf Nation Live as well. On the topic of Jamf Protect benchmark versus Jamf Pro JCE, is there documentation on how protect audits a given rule. I have multiple rules that fail in protect but pass in MSCP. No, we do not offer that type of documentation. It's almost like it's a IP of ours on how we accomplish it. Stay very close to what happens with the Jamf Protect compliance section, and continue to supply your feedback. But it's my guidance that all of you start your transitions over to the Jamf Pro compliance benchmark feature from this point forward. That would be my recommendation. Everett, there's a fair amount of overlap of the enforcement items, scripts, configuration profiles. Any plans to allow for unifying across platform OS versions and not duplicate your OS? Oof. Everett, I'm going to have to look into that. You are correct that certain scripts, when implementing, for example, SSH timeout, exist across all three that we support in Jamf Pro of 13, 14, 15, and shouldn't need a separate script and separate EA and separate smart group. Could we combine all of that? That's a great question. I don't know if you can. I think a lot of it actually has to do with how the MSCP script is built in general to identify the operating system's variants that are obtaining the variables from the OS to dictate which flags are necessary for which operating system. So I don't think that that is an applicable method, but Everett, I get your request, and yes, it would very much help simplify. Now, I will tell you this. What we're doing from a product perspective is actually taking a greater look at controlling how you view the implementation of a compliance benchmark. So for those of you that have not logged into Jamf Pro since 11.15 and started reviewing compliance benchmarks, you'll recognize when you do, there is a drastic number of extension attributes, scripts, policies, configuration profiles that are built per operating system, and we support 3. So it gets very, very noisy within Jamf Pro when you finally implement a compliance benchmark for an organization, and that happens for each compliance benchmark you create. So it gets very, very convoluted, as I mentioned, very noisy. So I would love to simplify that. We're trying to find ways to simplify it, like how do you control the category so that they're auto hidden, various things that we're trying to review today. So Everett, I get where you're going with that. Tony is correct. MSCP, we're working on V2 as Tony, you and I were at the MSCP developer conference. Okay. We are looking at ways that we can simplify it. I think it also has to do, as he mentioned, with how profiles are built, and profile key pairs also change per operating system sometimes. And pulling those key pairs out with variable payloads, that sometimes gets really wonky. How do you deal with various operating system levels in BYOD versus corporate? BYOD inside of the MSCP has separate settings, separate profiles that get applied versus a corporately owned device, because there are such drastic differences between which key pairs can be applied to a personally enabled device versus a supervised corporately owned device. There are a lot more key pairs available. So MSCP actually does a very good job of making the distinction between which keys can be applied based upon the enrollment type. So for NIST, hey Matt, So for NIST, use the tool. Yes, if you're applying either 853 or 800-171 for today, you'll need to use the Jamf Compliance Editor tool in order to complete that step. All right, Matt, am I missing anything? I'm now going to hit on Matt Jerome's next question. Eric, am I good?
Matt, I think you're killing it right now. We've got,
Okay.
I know Hugo on our team, I think some of our hosts can't put questions in the Q&A, which is kind of funny. We're learning, we're doing this live. Uh, so I
That's
think
awesome.
we might
Okay.
drop a question or two into the main chat. It looks like there's one or two questions in
Okay.
the main chat, but we're
How about
doing great on timing and whatnot. So
yeah,
and you're killing it.
yeah, if you don't mind, gather together the ones in chat. Once I'm done finishing the Q&A section, I'll turn to you and you start rattling off the chat variations of questions, please.
Perfect.
All right, Matt Jerome, if we have a benchmark deployed, if we need to make a modification, what's the best way to do that without impacting user experience, i.e. making sure no visuals extend to the user? Ooh. If you need to make a modification, I think it'll depend upon where that modification needs to be enforced by. If it's a script, usually that's completed through the execution of the MSCP shell script via the Jamf agent on the endpoint, i.e. no end user notifications are completed. If it's profile driven and it changes the user behavior, user UI space, Apple doesn't offer any non-visual changes when that happens. Basically, it comes down to the key. If it's a particular setting that in turn could impact a user experience, unfortunately, no ability to not affect the user space. So sorry about that, Matt, but that's the way that goes. Actually, I would suggest if you're recognizing that modifications need to happen and it happens frequently, and you would like to offer up a chance that it does not visually impact the user, get with your Apple SEs and indicate that that is a need and see what their recommendations would be, including probably an Apple Care case number or feedback.apple.com, as we all know, another great area. Okay, Nick, is Jamf working with a third-party tool like Fanta, Drata to get the compliance reports into reporting tools that compliance team normally use? No, but during Jamf Nation Live, multiple people brought that up, so it got added to our roadmap to thoroughly review how can we feed the compliance status of an endpoint, especially if we have user-based data applied to that endpoint, that all of that can feed into Drata or Vanta or others. So I love that feature request, and I think we're going to start reviewing that here shortly, just as we've recently started greatly extending our capabilities of feeding data into SIM and SOAR platforms. I think another one would be to get into compliance tool feeds. So, yeah, I get it. I got you, Steve. Thank you. Any plans to, Rob's next question, any plans to allow for easy migration of compliance benchmark when upgrading to major OSs? Currently, we have to recreate our benchmarks by hand, including the ODVs when Apple releases major updates. Yes, but as you can understand, Jamf Pro 11.15 came out during the reign of macOS Sequoia. So in turn, we have not had the chance to have this feature live during an Apple OS update, especially major OS update. So in turn, we're going to monitor this heavily right after WWDC to understand what is the impact. More importantly, we have to also wait on MSCP. So once MSCP gets updated, some changes happen with macOS, whatever freaking number they decide to go with, that can the changes of settings, including ODB changes or key pair changes to payloads, whether or not it's declarative or old MDM spec, whatever happens, how can that change? We're definitely going to be monitoring how that happens. It is one of the top requests that came out of Jamf Nation Live this past month. So thank you, Rob, for positioning that question within here so I can answer it. Okay, we got a lot of discussion going on. I am ecstatic that this is going to be built into Jamf Pro. Can't wait to dive in. Curious to see if the SSO with OIDC and Jamf accounts. I would say for now, based upon my limited visibility into the roadmap, that Jamf account SSO is going to be a pretty hard requirement, given how I know the technical backend as to the why it is. I would suggest if you're not ready to federate your SSO with Jamf account, fine, don't do it. Just use Jamf account for now. Sorry, Jamf ID for now. You do not need to federate your SSO in order to review some of these features, especially on your dev or test tenant you have from Jamf. Go and use Jamf ID. You get to play around with it. That would be my suggestion today. And yes, Scott is correct that we have absolutely received the feedback to drop the whole Jamf account SSO hard requirement. Obviously, that means that we're looking into it because of all the votes. I will tell you that just foundationally, how we've built our future, Jamf account SSO is going to be a pretty hard requirement. Talked with Jamf about this. Integrating all the things requires OIDC because of limitations of SAML. It's actually not just the limitations of SAML. It's actually just how we are building our platform moving forward. We are now building Jamf in more of a methodology of using cloud-based services correctly, including Kubernetes. And when you look at building out a Kubernetes-based platform with microservices on the back end, there are some ways that you need to tie all of that together, and how we've done that, unfortunately, it requires right now Jamf account SSO to do that. Okay, Anonymous, one last one, and then Eric, I'll be ready for you in chat questions. Any thought into the ability to have JCE build multiple benchmarks at the same time, similar to the question sent earlier, but if for CIS level 2, it spits out Sequoia, Sonoma, similar to what Jamf Compliance? No, today I can tell you that we are not looking into that, solely because that's not how MSCP works. MSCP is in the same construct. You have to select the operating system, select the benchmark, deselect your rules, edit the ODBs, and then you spit out your guidance. Jamf Compliance Editor is just a GUI front end to that to make your life easier. That, in fact, you've brought out one of the key features of why I expect Jamf Pro Compliance Benchmark to start to catch on, because we have automated so many things on the back end to make it easier for you to create one benchmark and apply it to multiple operating systems, i.e., +1 for Jamf Pro in that case. MSCP, macOS Security Compliance Project. And in fact, I think I've got a window open with a link to it. Let's go back to Zoom. Yep, Tony, you're too fast. I'm trying to get the link. Okay, Eric, over to you.
Well, the exciting part is you are all caught up. We only had 1 or 2 questions that were in the chat, and they worked their way over into the Q&A. So now that the questions are in my hands, if anybody else has any questions, please don't hesitate. Keep throwing those in the Q&A. For now, is Tyrese Halliburton having the most clutch playoff performance we've ever seen in this one playoff run with the Pacers?
I don't even have a freaking clue what you're talking about.
Will Connor McDavid finally cement himself as one of the game's greatest by beating the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup? We're taking answers from all across the boards, by the way. This is what happens when I'm left to ask the remaining questions. So if we don't want to go sports talk, I suggest we start cooking up some Jamf questions quickly.
especially for those that just do not watch that sport at all. So James Butler has for compliance benchmark, can you easily add Jamf ID? Oh yeah, James, you are correct. Yeah, keep SAML settings in Jamf Pro and then just use Jamf ID. And yes, you need to make sure that there's no duplication of records when you're logging into Jamf Pro, but just use Jamf ID for now. That will easily get you into the space of using blueprints and compliance benchmarks and app switcher. Given all three of those features requires either using Jamf ID or your federated SSO and Jamf account. Okay, back to Eric for some sports talk.
I could also load up one of my favorite Michael Jordan highlight videos for all of us to just watch on YouTube.
I've got one I can throw out there. Not specifically for me, but I think just a general overview. Because there's a lot of reference. So here's the question. There's a lot of reference to Jamf Protect, but with the acquisition of Wandera, now we have Security Cloud, and Security Cloud falls under like the name of Jamf Protect. Is Jamf Protect going to be an overarching name that contains a different suite of security tools, or like how is that envisioned at Jamf moving forward, like the Jamf Protect product
You're
line?
gonna love my response because we've even changed everything that you just said.
And that changed in the past year already, so here we go.
Well, meaning our focus and intent moving forward is to offer up an excellent experience at using Jamf as a platform moving forward. Therefore, when you try to talk to Jamf these days, even at your renewal time, you will get informed about either Jamf for Mac or Jamf for mobile if you're in the commercial space. You've also got Jamf for K-12 and Jamf for SMB as well that also exist. Our goal is that you purchase that one product and you get access to everything. Now, under the hood, do we still have certain products? Yes. Well, you've got the Jamf Pro interface. You've got the Jamf Connect interface. You've got the Jamf Protect interface. And those interfaces happen to have different consoles behind it. Jamf Security Cloud covers Jamf Connect and Jamf Protect. The macOS Security Portal is a Jamf Protect. And you've got Jamf Pro, still being Jamf Pro. So we've got various tiers of how you implement Jamf as a company and what our solution offers. We just want to make sure that you all have the best experience at Apple device management and security that any of you could have. So yeah, it's different these days. So just be aware of that and how we're approaching the market differently. Okay. More questions coming in. Sorry, Hugo. Does that answer your question?
That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Anonymous. Newbie question. Our cybersecurity team discovered Qualys was not auditing Macs correctly. Yep. So they asked us for a dashboard type graphic to show the compliance levels for our company. Where in JCE can we get that dashboard type graphic? Okay. So I'm going to continue to compound upon a former statement. Jamf Compliance Editor is simply a GUI front end to the macOS Security Compliance Project. I've referenced it as MSCP. That's all it does. It's simply there to allow you to create a benchmark that Jamf Pro can use. So my response to you is once you use Jamf Compliance Editor to create your benchmark and you upload it into Jamf Pro, then you use Jamf Pro to create dashboards, whether it be a smart computer group that shows that all of your devices are in fact compliant with the totality of the benchmark you created, and that be in your dashboard, or you can build what's called an advanced computer search, otherwise known as reports, and you can build an advanced computer search that says, hey, if it participates in the CIS level 2 benchmark and it's deemed as compliant, spit out this report that gets sent via email over to our compliance team once a week. And that way they have a auditable trail of all of that. So in this case, Jamf Pro would be the tool in which you would build both dashboards and reports from Jamf Compliance Editor. So hopefully that answers. Yes, and in fact, Qualys is one of many tools. It goes back to the Vanta and Drata discussion earlier. They're one of many tools that tries to audit for compliance and receive auditing and build out reporting and dashboarding. And so it's not been great for Apple endpoints for actually a while. Okay, anonymous, not necessarily a product or protect related. Any chance that when updating JSON schemas in Jamf Pro, it retains values that exist in the new schema and the old versus resetting all the values? No, it has to reset all the values. And I'm sorry, I have no workaround off the top of my head for that. I would say take that over to the Mac admins Slack and ask that question in the macOS security compliance channel to see maybe how others have tried to maneuver around the JSON schema updates. If not in there, just go to Jamf Nation channel. And if you're not aware of the Mac admin Slack, it's just macadmins.org. And you can go and sign up for access to that workspace. It's free to everyone. A wonderful place for even going and reviewing Rocketman Command Center, for example. Okay, anonymous, customized pie charts in Jamf Pro. Example, yes, customizable pie charts in Jamf Pro. Yes, you use the smart computer group and you can build pie charts off of that. Man, it's been years since I've done this. I'm pretty sure that's how you do it. And then you put it in the dashboard. Adam, use the Jamf AI Assistant for any of this. For those that can use AI Assistant, yes. There are many, many, many thousands of customers that cannot use the AI Assistant. James, question, is there any documentation that indicates what CIS level 1 or level 2 benchmarks that compliance reporting uses in Jamf Protect? In some cases, you can find a match. Some others are a challenge. If this was answered above, my apologies. So James, yes, I kind of talked about it earlier, but it's okay. I'll talk about it again. No, well, we do not have any public documentation in regards to Jamf Protect's compliance auditing feature and how we complete those steps on a per rule basis. I would always advise you, first and foremost, always go to the CIS website to truly understand what their benchmarks are there for, including their documentation. You can also find tons of documentation about the CIS security benchmark within the MSCP as well, where you can get documentation on how it is audited there as well. Eric, am I missing anything?
I don't think so. I think the threat.
Otherwise, I think we're at time.
Yeah, the threat of sports talk made like 6 questions pour in immediately, which I love to see. That was great. We are at about time. We got about 5 minutes left. So if you do have a burning hot question that you got to get out there, there is still time, but we might as well start wrapping it up. First things first, Matt, thank you so much for taking the hot seat. You did a great job. Always wonderful to have you on here. I'm already looking forward to number 4. I'm sure that's coming around the corner. Next month, we will be doing WWDC updates. We will be doing that on, I think the first Friday of July is July 4th, so we'll obviously not be doing that. What is the next date?
July 11th, Eric, is our
Yeah.
next meetup. That's with Patrick. For
July 11th, so mark your calendars, July 11th at noon Mountain Time for the next meetup, WWDC updates. That one's always a fun one. We get to do all sorts of pontificating and guessing what we actually learned at WWDC and when things will actually come out that they teased. Other than that, we'll be posting this meetup on our YouTube channel as usual. You can navigate to that, just go into YouTube and type it in Rocketman Tech. With that, Matt, do you have
Fantastic.
any closing words?
No, I do not. Thank you all for coming. I really enjoyed it. Like I'm thought all along, you all are wonderful at presenting questions. Eric, I never had any doubt about this crew, so I think we're good. And Lisa, hopefully I stayed within frame this whole time. So thank you all.
Thank you for joining us today. We have new episodes on the first Friday of every month. If you'd like to join our session live, visit the link in the description to get on our mailing list. And if you're looking to get the most out of your Jamf server, visit rocketman.tech to set up a meeting with one of our Jamf experts. That's rocketman.tech.